you don't have to know how to do everything, but you do have to know how to get everything done. All right. So if you're not good at the books, hire a bookkeeper, hire a CPA to help you out. There's options out there to make your business run efficient and help you ease your business. So once again, you don't have to know how to do everything yourself, but you do have to know how to get everything done.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. And this week, Adam Linnemann is back on, and we're going to go deeper into you will never hit $1 million in sales if you don't follow this one simple rule. Adam's got a great rule here. I want to go deep into this and have us unpack this. Today, our goal is to understand why focusing on top line revenue is wrong. That big number that everyone's chasing, why that's wrong. And how by only shifting your perspective, you will get a lot more profitable. And also how to identify and broom projects that are only going to cost you money. What's the point of doing a project at the end? It actually costs you more than you're actually making. So Adam, welcome back.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I want to get into this right away with you and just roll our sleeves up. So why is focusing on top line revenue wrong?
Basically because all revenue is not necessarily good revenue, right? So you can, like I mentioned in the earlier show, that you could be doing a $50,000 landscaping job and end up having $50,000 in expenses towards that job. So it's really, really important to be focusing on jobs that will make you not only good revenue, but also good profit. That is so important. Typically, I see typically it being very, very hard for contractors to be making good profit on doing things such as maintenance work like mowing. I'm not saying it can't be done. I know some contractors that do very well with it. How are they doing very well with it is that they're being very, very, very efficient. They literally have lawns that they're mowing that are side by side by side by side by side. They can park one day and they can knock out 20 yards in a day, and they can make money doing that. But generally speaking, with all the contractors that I've worked with in the lawn care and landscaping industry, it makes a big difference on the amount of profit that they make is determined on the type of work that they're selling, the type of work that they're doing.
Got it. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Some work is not work you can make a great profit. It's a very competitive market. And like, for instance, the lawn mowing side, if you had to truly charge what it cost you plus a profit, you probably wouldn't have that much work to do unless you said, like you said, put them side by side by side. So a lot of the outdoor living, landscape, and hardscape listeners out there, it's a little bit different because the cool part about what we do is, for the most part, is we get to design it. We get to create what that idea could look like. So we have some extra value that we're adding to this relationship with our clients. So when we're shooting for big numbers, we got to be very careful, listeners. We got to be very careful that we don't say, oh, my target is $1 million this year. I'm going to get there no matter what. Because then it's a sell focus, and you're not thinking about what you're actually going to have in the bank at the end. If you guys haven't listened to our last episode, we talked about that. It's, how come contractors get stuck in this cycle of going paycheck to paycheck, and how can they finally break out and get to a profitable seven figures? And in order to do that, it's about being aware that you're not just chasing dollars, but you're actually chasing profitable dollars and creating environments for that to happen. What do you think, Adam?
Well, think about this, Josh. If you were a excellent salesperson and you were going to be in car sales, right? If you needed to be at $1 million in car sales, would you rather be selling Lamborghinis or Ford Escorts?
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna surpass your $1 million sales goal if you're a good salesperson easily with Lamborghinis by selling maybe 4 or 5 of those versus having to sell how many Fords. Yep. So the same type of thing kind of happens with lawn care and landscaping. Maybe you consider looking into selling pools, doing pool installs. I know a contractor locally to me that started doing pool installs 6-7 years ago. He's installing maybe 10, 15 pools a year, and he's doing $3 or $4 million in revenue. How many lawns would that take? How many people would it take to generate $3 or $4 million in revenue cutting grass,
Yeah,
right? Um,
absolutely.
Same thing goes for, we're talking about profit. Um, if you're designing a simple $5,000, $10,000 softscape in the front of a home, put the Japanese maple, put the ornamental tree at the corner of the house. Your sales will increase, your profitability will be better than it will be if you're putting a ornamental pampas grass on the corner of the house. What you sell matters.
Mm-hmm. No,
Um,
absolutely.
Revenue per hour, if you don't mind me discussing that a little bit, revenue per
Please.
hour is huge. There's huge amounts of revenue per hour if you do like things like landscape lighting. All right, I can go to a home and put 8-10 hours on a home for a single installer to install, let's just say, 6 path lights and 10 uplights on a home. I can get that job done in a day. By the time you end up having your material and labor, let's just say you have $1,500, $2,000 in labor for the day, and you have $2,000 in materials. Take that total job of, let's just say it's $3,500, $4,000, and divide it into your 8 or 10 hour a day. Your revenue per hour matters. What you can
Mm-hmm.
generate in an hour is huge. So landscape lighting is typically very high revenue per hour. It's anywhere from $200 to $400 per hour when you're doing lighting, versus mowing is going to be a quarter of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I know the guys out there that mow will say, "Yeah, but it's not consistent. It's not something that I get every single time. I can't keep going
Sure,
back." But you've got to just have then a stronger sales system in order to continue to find new work that way. So there's balances to all of that, I'm sure.
there is.
But at the end of the day, the question would be, and I've heard a lot of students that have come through our courses, they go from like, "Hey, we're mowing and we're building. We'd rather be building, but mowing pays the bills." And then when you actually start forensically looking at that, the next thing you know, they're like, "Wait a minute here. It's actually costing me to mow these yards." Not for everybody out there. I'm sure some listeners are doing well with that. But, some of them are like, "You know what? We're just not equipped for that. And I would rather make that larger money on the design build side." But that's a different beast.
It
You
is.
don't,
Yeah.
you don't collect those clients and have them for a yearly contract. This is like a one and done, and you got to move on. So you're always a hunter. You're constantly hunting. You're not farming. It's a very different focus. You have to have the guts and the cojones for that to continue to go out and continue to fight the good fight, and to constantly be putting money in the marketing and to finding those new leads and taking care of each and every client. So, a lot of times the guys that I talk to, they're like, "Hey, yeah, my big goal, I want to hit 1 million. I want to hit 5 million. I want to hit 10 million in 5 years." And my first question is always, are you profitable where you are right now?
Right.
Are
I
you
would say,
profitable now?
if I had to start my business all over again tomorrow, would I still get into the mowing? I probably would. But here's what I would do is I would get into the mowing. I would build up to 100, 200 mowing accounts, which isn't really that much. And then I would literally start raising prices and offering more services other than just mowing to those customers, and then
Yeah.
continue raising those prices, and then start stepping into hardscapes, landscapes, lighting, and so on. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with having a mowing offering in your business lineup, but I personally would keep it maybe at a third of your business or less.
Yeah.
Diversification, right? Don't have
Yep.
all your eggs
Yep.
in one
No,
basket.
having options. I know a lot of guys that do that, and they do quite well with that balance. So it's really a matter of what's in your heart, listeners. It's more about what you want from your business, because ultimately we can't tell you to do anything. It's more a matter of what do you want to do. These are just ideas. Now, what I was getting at earlier is, if you are running a business and you're struggling to make a profit at 250 or 500,000 or 750 or $1 million, like you're struggling, it's costing you that much to run the business, and there's really not much at the end. There's really no profit left after you've taken a reasonable paycheck. Then why are you looking at scaling? If you can't figure it out at that level, if you can't
Right.
get your numbers right, your profit right at 250, 500, 750, $1 million or more, if you can't get that right, what's going to happen when you 2, 4, 5, 10x that? The problem just expands with it too. Those systems must be in place before you start focusing on scaling. Everybody gets excited. They all jump around and say, "Oh, I'm going to hit 1 million this year. I'm going to hit 5 million. I'm going to hit whatever." They're going after these numbers because it sounds exciting at cocktail parties. But the reality is they're not making any money doing it.
Sure.
They're not
Josh,
focusing on the profit.
I got out of mowing in 2022. 100%. I sold my mowing part of my business off, and
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I do regret about it, honestly, is we're not seen as much. having the mowing services and being, going from lawn to lawn, 10 to 20 stops a day, whatever it is
Yep.
definitely a good marketing strategy, I believe, especially if you have your trucks lettered and a box trailer and things like that. So that is one thing I miss about the mowing. Um, but then I also go back and think about the manpower it took to operate that business, to mow 200 accounts, 300 accounts, the phone calls that would come in with it occasionally. And then other things such as here's a post that I made the other day, and it holds true. Just for round numbers, let's just say you're mowing a postage stamp size yard for $50, and you can make some money off that. Let's just say you can $50, and you're going to mow 30 times a year. That's $1,500 a year. I was having employees in the years that would accidentally, have a string trimmer, run the mower over some rocks, and break a window. If your average net profit, if you're lucky, is 10% on mowing, over $1,500 a year on one account, that's only $150 profit per year on that one account. You break a window and it costs you $300 to fix it. Now you're mowing that lawn for the next 2 years for break even.
Yep.
Those are the type of things that's like, why am I doing this? Once again, I'm not saying don't cut grass. Do it if you can do it profitably. But for me, I honestly was having a hard time doing it profitably. And then every spring I would feel like I'm banging my head against the wall over and over and over again, thinking, hey, I'm going to this house for only $15 profit. I'm going to this house next week for only $15 profit. When I can be going out and doing a landscape job in a day or 3 days or a week and making $500 profit or $1,000 profit. So that was kind of the tipping point for me when I personally got out of the mowing. Once again, not saying don't do it, but just know your numbers. If it's worth it to you, if you're making money, if it's putting food on the table and you're paying yourself a fair salary and you're having money left over, continue it. But you got to know. And sometimes it comes down to just, not literally pennies. Well, I guess it could be, but it's really important to know how much profit you're making on each stop. You have to measure what you're invoicing. You have to measure your time on site, and you have to measure, basically the profit on each job.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And it's when things are so busy that the numbers become something that you look at maybe once a month or once a quarter or hell, once a year. You just go out there and work. Because our industry is full of incredible doers, right? People that love to build really good stuff. They want to work. They're hardworking. They want to do a great job. But unfortunately, sometimes the business side of it becomes a kind of a burden to deal with, right? It's like, man, why do I got to deal with this whole profit stuff? All I want to do is help people. All I want to do is build cool stuff. I just want to grow my business. But then there's this whole business thing that we weren't trained for when we got our EIN number, right? We got our EIN. The government says, here's how you pay taxes. Have fun. And that's the end of it, right? So we never were trained. I know I wasn't formally trained on business. I had to learn it in the streets. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of listeners. It's a matter of listening to what Adam's talking about here and looking at each project and type of work that you're doing. Is it profitable work? Is it work that's actually putting food on the table? Is it putting money in the bank? Like we talked about in the last episode, is it building your legacy? Are you making enough? If you aren't, then it's either costing you too much to run your business, or you are, you're not profitable enough to even keep your business running. Think about that. You're either not charging enough up front, or you're not saving enough in the backside, and you're buying things or maybe living a lifestyle that's a little bit too much, or have too many trucks and pieces of equipment because you think that's the way that we become more successful, is to have more stuff. I remember buying a first piece of equipment. It's like, man, I just want to sit in that truck and I want to look at that brand new Bobcat and that brand new trailer on the back of that brand new dump truck. Like, you just drive around with your name on the side of it. Like, it was all pride and ego focused back then. It was like, that's what I wanted to do. And then every single month when I got those bills in the mail, I'm like, oh crap, I owe how much each month? Like, the tail started wagging a dog after a while, right? Like, oh, but I'm saving money on taxes, so I'm going to go out there and I'm going to maximize that tax, benefit. I'm going to go out there and buy. I can spend up to X amount of dollars a year on that, so that makes perfect sense. And after 3 or 4 years of doing that, because my accountant says, yeah, go out there and do it. You can accelerate the depreciation. You can write it off. It's going to be great. The problem is I had 5 years of payments on that thing, right? That was the problem. And I was like, oh man, now the tail's wagging a dog. The cost to run all this stuff, it's costing me more than I'm making. Now what am I going to do? So listeners, be very careful. I know how fast that can happen. It happened to me. And after a while, I'm like, you know what is life like when I don't have any tools and I can still run my company? That's why we do all design manage now. But still, it's man, it's a ride.
It's the foolish spend that gets people in trouble, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is probably, I'm sure it's unpopular for some, but I'm going to say it. I would never, and I think it's dumb that people do this. I would never personally fly first class. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I look at the pricing. I fly Southwest everywhere. I look at the pricing
Yeah.
between, I mean, they don't even have first class really, but they have like the business class versus it's like $400 difference, right?
Yeah.
Just to be able to get on the plane 20 minutes earlier. I'd rather take that $400 and, go on a weekend vacation somewhere for a couple nights. I'd rather take that $400 and treat the family out to a really nice steak dinner personally. I mean, it's all about what you enjoy, but I just think that's dumb. I've seen a lot of guys lately buy Cybertrucks. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we buying Cybertrucks? It's just show and tell. I don't get it. That's just me.
No, I totally hear you, dude. It's sometimes that's again the ego play where it's like, well, yeah, if I had a Cybertruck, I'm the only one in the area. It's a business expense possibly, right? And you're like, all right, well then I can put my name on the side of it, so you can justify the hell out of that thing, right?
How
the
about
problem
you paint
is that
pink? How about you paint your truck pink if you want to get attention?
That'll do it. That'll certainly do it. So, I mean, it's, again, be careful, guys, out there, especially when you come into a lot of money doing these projects, you see the accounts growing, that kind of stuff. Just be very careful. If you have a system like Profit First in place, you can see, okay, that's not all spendable money. Some of that money is allocated for taxes. Some of that money is allocated for profit. Some of that money is allocated for overhead. You make money now that you may have to hold until later in the season when you have other expenses that are coming in, like insurances that get paid once a year, and you don't see those right in the beginning. You see them toward the end. And it's ultimately, guys, listeners, I just want to see you succeed. That's really what it is. And some of these things that I've had to learn the hard way over time, because everything I'm talking about, I've done, right? So, and now almost 30 years in the business, I realized that, wow, wait a minute here. I wish somebody would have just sat me down and said, look, son, this is how it's supposed to be. Watch out, do this, make sure you get your profit right. Understand what a doodad and an asset actually is, right? A liability, assets, like all those kinds of things. If an asset is something that puts money in your pocket, a liability is something that pulls money out of your pocket. It's so basic, but you're like, wait a minute here. I'm getting some of those confused, right? I'm thinking like, well, I really need that Cybertruck. Well, it's putting money in my pocket. Is it though? Possibly. Is it though? Really? Is it an asset or is it a fancy toy? Let's be honest with ourselves. Where's that line?
And I'm not saying don't splurge, right? If you want to fly first class on your honeymoon, fly first class on your honeymoon. But
yeah,
I'll always ask yourself these three questions, Josh. First, is the purchase what I'm about to make good for my company? Second, is the purchase what I'm about to make good for my customer? And third, can the purchase wait? That's kind of like the sniff test. All right.
Yep.
So
it's you notice how you didn't say, is it good for me?
Right.
I like that. So it's, again, guys, that could be a slowdown, a sniff test, kind of putting it in ice and waiting till it melts to make the decision instead of it being a knee jerk. I'm excited. I see the money. I just sold that project. I need to celebrate. So I'm going to go buy something expensive. Yeah. It's about slowing it down. It's about thinking about that profit first, about putting it in a right spot, allocating it, being purposeful in how you're doing it. That's really what it's all about at the end of the day. So when it comes to that top line revenue, that's the number that you're bringing in. That's the cost of the project, that's your sell on the project. And you're like, all right, wow, like I just sold this $100,000 project, and you see $100,000 come in. And of that, depending on how expensive it is to run your company and how the project goes, you might make $5,000 or $10,000 out of that. So the money that you only have to play with is less than that, not the whole 100. So we have to be very careful to slow down the wagon. When we get 2 or 3 projects, 5 or 10 projects like that coming in, we start to see those accounts swell quickly. But we have to be very, very mindful of the fact that that's not all our money. That money has to be allocated. If I had $1 for every time I talk to somebody about, when I'm talking about coaching with them, and they're like, oh yeah, we just did 7 million last year. And I'd be like, okay, cool. How much did you make? We might break even this year. And I'm thinking like, and I'm not here to judge. It's not, Adam, it's not my point. I'm sitting here thinking like, and you want to scale a business that you're barely making any money on. At the end of the day, all that heartache, all that pain, all those conversations, all those clients, all that all of that, employees, broken equipment, all of that stuff to make no money at the end of the year for the business. Because if your business doesn't have money, it can't grow, it can't advertise, it can't hire, it can't do anything.
Sure. Yep.
And that's the part that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Um, and, running a business like that takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of dedication. So,
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind, entrepreneurs have dedication and want, and are excited about growing a business. I just think it's the discipline of understanding all parts of the business, and that's something important too. Is you don't have to know how to do everything, but you do have to know how to get everything done. All right.
Yep.
So if you're not good at the books, hire a bookkeeper, hire a CPA to help you out. Right.
Yeah.
If you're not good at answering your phones, or you let calls sit there for 2 or 3 days and then you return phone calls, bring someone in your company that can answer the phones, or contract out the phone calls to another company. There's options out there to make your business run efficient and help you ease your business. So once again, you don't have to know how to do everything yourself, but you do have to know how to get everything done.
That's true. That is so very true. So Adam, I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up here. So how do you identify problem clients that are going to cost you money? Do you have any certain red flags that come up for you?
That's a great question. Here's honestly one thing that we do. In our computer software program that we use at my company, there is a built-in CRM, and that CRM is basically a communication history. And every time we have a contact with the client, whether it be a complaint, whether it be a problem with their invoice, whether it be anything, we document that. And what we do is at the end of every year, we go to my sales manager, my general manager, my office coordinator, myself, and we sit down at our year-end meeting. We were like, is there anybody here that you can think of right now that's just a PITA? PITA stands for pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
And we might get 4 or 5 names that pop up. This person's been a headache. And then what we do is we go back to our computer program and we research that customer and we see how many touches we've had from them. And then we determine if this customer is going to be a customer next year or not. So long story short is we're documenting problems, issues, phone calls, complaints, neediness, all that with certain customers that have been noticed to be red flags. And then we make the decision to either, all right, their pricing is going up, or we're just going to be polite and tell them, we're not going to service them this year or whatever that is. That's our process of dealing with bad clients.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm sure listeners out there can I don't know, understand this as well when it comes down to clients. Not everybody is the right fit, right? There's so many clients that we work with that are either, as soon as you give them money, they start becoming demanding, or they get entitled, or they start, blowing your phone up at all kinds of weird hours and all of this. And the question really is, listeners, do you want to continue to find more people like that? And if you don't do what Adam just mentioned about going through and talking about it, say, okay, what do we really want to keep these clients on, or do we want to fire them? Because we have that opportunity. We have that right to fire clients. We can let people go. It's either a win-win or there's no business going on here, right? If we don't feel like there's a value for us as a company and there's no value for them as a client, then it's not a one-way street where as long as they keep paying us, we keep coming back. We can keep with our integrity and say, you know what, it's just not working for us, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with doing that out there. So if you guys, listeners, have a tough client that just constantly just running you over the coals, constantly telling you how it's going to be, constantly thinking their money is greener than everybody else's, demanding things, you can simply let them go. That's the cool part about this. Don't ever forget you have that right.
Right. You got to take into consideration how much time are they taking up of yours? I mean, really. And some customers, they just suck the living life out of you. It seems like, they're just so needy. And at some point in time, you just got to put a stop to it, because it's not always, and even if your company is bigger, it's not always about taking the time up with the people out in the field that are doing the work, or maybe the employee out in the field isn't having a good relationship with the customer because they're out there bothering them all the time or being really particular. But you got to think about the time it takes from your overhead admin people, the owner, the person answering the phones, the sales manager. If they're always having them come out and request estimates and never go with a job or go with the estimate. If it's one of those, you need to stop giving free estimates if they're asking for a dozen estimates a year and they never end up going with your project. So you got to really look at the time that these customers
Yep.
are taking. As I mentioned, not all revenue is good revenue. Not all customers are good customers.
And that's the truth, and once you sit down and start finding common threads on the ones that you don't like Adam's talking about doing an AAR, an after action report in the end of the year saying, all right, well, these 4 people are driving us crazy. I'd be sitting there thinking, okay, what are some common threads in the way they're driving us crazy? Is it being demanding? Is it a certain kind of project that we keep finding that we run into problems? Is it something we're doing wrong? Are we pissing them off because we're setting an expectation and not delivering on it? Could we be at fault for this? If the answer is no, and they just become very demanding and then start thinking, why? Why are they becoming demanding? Is it just part of their nature? Or is there something that we're falling short or they're falling short on, right? Is it something that can be fixed? If it's not, and it's just the type of client that they are, I would want to have a list of things that come up early in the process, in our sales process, that we can start defining who these people are before we get too much time invested with them. So maybe they don't make a phone call on time. Maybe if we ask for both spouses to be on a discovery call, the other spouse is just never available. Those are problems. Those are red flags. Maybe it's that their budget keeps changing. Maybe it's that they can't make a decision. Maybe it's the fact that they live in a certain subdivision. That happens sometimes, right? There's certain subdivisions that you can try all you want. You keep throwing your line out. You keep throwing estimates and ideas and designs out to, and they just don't go through. There's something about the water there, right? It happens. So if that's the case, and you can be very disciplined in that and be very purposeful with it, you say, all right, we know what? This lead's coming out of this XYZ subdivision. And the last 4 we put, proposals and designs we did for somebody or families in those subdivisions, they didn't pan out. I'm curious to see what it is about this. Do they all work together and they just want to say, hey, go to these guys for a free estimate and this is really the guy you should go with? Or what's going on here? There's some thread of truth here before we waste our time. Because if we can become really good with the sales process and we can define these tire kickers and these time wasters, if we can define them way early in the process, think about how much, not just the time it's going to save you as the owner, but your entire team. How long it takes to do a design, how long it takes to do a proposal, how long it takes to present all of that. Imagine if you could tell ahead of time if they were going to waste your time.
Sure. You know what they call a subdivision of Karens, don't you? An HOA.
What's that?
An HOA.
Yeah.
One more thing too is, look at collections. AR, like you mentioned, is Mrs. Smith the one that you always have to call, that always pays her bill late all the time? Is that somebody you want to work with?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as an owner, you guys listening out there, you make that decision. A lot of the stuff in life, in life, we get what we tolerate. So if you continue to tolerate late payments and demanding clients, you're going to just have more of them. If you eventually say, you know what, nope, this is a two-way street. If we're not gaining and you're not gaining, then it's not a good relationship. Then we just need to move on. Maybe someone else can serve you at a better level than I can. Maybe we're just not meant to be in this connection together right now. And that's okay. It's totally okay. So Adam, I appreciate all your insight on this. Today, our focus was, how focusing on top line revenue is wrong. And I hope you guys understand that if you're chasing that big number, but you're not profitable, if you scale that business, it's just going to become a bigger business that's not profitable. And also how only shifting your perspective, you will become a lot more profitable by focusing on, a profit first focus, thinking about how are we putting profit as a priority and not just something that we hope for at the end. And also how to identify and broom those projects that cost you money, like we just finished up talking about. So Adam, thank you for coming back on. Next week, we're going to jump into Profit Unlocked, ensuring success with one simple shift. Again, our focus here, without profit, our businesses can't grow. It's like taking the fuel out of the engine. If without it, we can't go anywhere. So not that we have to be so focused on money. This is about making sure that we're very efficient with what we're doing to be able to bring the highest value, serve our clients at the highest level, and to grow a business that can make a big difference in the world. So Adam, thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you next week.